What if a billionaire paid a stranger to carry his child, with no strings attached? No names, no promises, just a contract. But what happens when that woman disappears 8 months pregnant and he realizes he doesn't want the baby without her? This isn't just a love story. It's a collision between money, emotion, and the one thing money can't buy: real connection. If this story made your heart race, made you feel something real, don't scroll past. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a twist like this. Comment below. Would you take $200,000 to carry a stranger's child? And don't forget to share this video, because someone out there needs to believe that love doesn't always start the way we expect, but it's real all the same. It was past midnight when Nathan Carter walked into the rundown diner on the edge of downtown Dallas. The rain had just stopped, the neon signs outside still flickering weakly in the puddles. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee, fried bacon, and desperation. Nathan didn't belong there. In a charcoal gray suit worth more than the diner's monthly rent, the 38-year-old tech mogul took a seat in the far corner. He wasn't there for food, or comfort, or company. He was there because he was done pretending. He had it all: wealth, control, the kind of influence that could tilt markets. But at the end of the day, he'd go home to silence, to marble floors and echoing hallways. 2 marriages down, no children, no legacy, no warmth. He didn't want a wife. He didn't want love. He wanted a child on his terms. No strings, no risks, just bloodline and contract. He sipped the black coffee the waitress poured. It tasted like ash water. Then he looked up, and time paused. She was wiping down a booth, dark hair tied back messily, wearing a faded name tag that read Emily. Her uniform was wrinkled, her sneakers worn down, but her posture was proud, strong. Her eyes, those piercing eyes, didn't match the world she was trapped in. He watched her move from table to table, ignoring the late-night drunks and their crude jokes. She was somewhere else in her mind, and somehow Nathan saw it. The fight in her, the edge, the resistance. When their eyes met, she didn't flinch. She didn't smile either. He waited until she walked past again. "Do you always work this late?" His voice was low, steady, businesslike. Emily turned, arms crossed. "Depends. You always ask strangers weird questions in the middle of the night." Nathan let out a half smile. "Only when I'm about to make them an offer." She raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "I don't do that kind of work." "I'm not here for that," he replied coldly. "I'm here because I need something very specific." He pulled a business card from his pocket, slid it across the table. "Sit." Emily didn't move, but curiosity had already taken hold. 5 minutes, she muttered, sitting down. Nathan leaned forward. "I want a child," he said plainly. "Biological, no marriage, no relationship, no co-parenting. Just a contract, full medical care, private living, complete financial support during the pregnancy. Then you disappear. In exchange, $200,000. Silence. Emily blinked, then laughed, bitter and quick. "You're kidding." "I never kid about money," Nathan said without flinching. "You don't even know me?" she said, voice tight. "I don't need to," he replied. "This is business. I need someone healthy, discreet, unattached. You check all 3 boxes." Her face hardened. What kind of man walks into a diner and asks a waitress to have his child? "The kind who knows what he wants," he said. Emily stood. "This is insane." He nodded slightly. "It is. But so is staying here for the next 10 years, working double shifts, while your life passes by." She froze. Nathan's voice softened, but just barely. $200,000. No strings, no press, no future obligations. Emily walked away, but her heart didn't. She didn't sleep that night. She thought about her kid brother, hooked up to a dialysis machine 3 nights a week, about the loan sharks who'd started calling again, about the notice on her door that said "Final Warning." The next night, Nathan returned. Same booth, same seat, same dead coffee. Emily approached quietly. "If I do this," she said, "I decide when I leave. After the birth, I disappear. No goodbye, no loose ends." Nathan nodded. "Fine. We'll write it into the contract." She sat down slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why me?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because you're not desperate. You're surviving. That matters. She took a breath, then reached for the pen he offered. Emily Brooks moved into the high-rise apartment at exactly 9:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. Nathan Carter wasn't there to greet her. Instead, his assistant Julia met her at the door, clipboard in hand, crisp and efficient. "This is a private unit," Julia explained. "Fully stocked. Doctor is on call, 24/7, weekly checkups, groceries delivered. You'll have what you need. Mr. Carter prefers distance. He won't be involved unless necessary." Emily just nodded. This wasn't about warmth or welcome. It was about function. Like everything in Nathan's world. She walked through the sleek, whitewashed apartment like she was stepping into someone else's life. Marble countertops, touchscreen panels on every wall, the kind of place with silence built into the architecture. But Emily didn't flinch. She unpacked. She hung her own paintings on the blank walls. She made soup from scratch. She opened the windows and let the noise of the city in. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't wait for instructions. She lived, and it drove Nathan insane. From his office, Nathan reviewed the weekly medical reports. The baby? No, the project was progressing well. Emily was healthy, compliant, and yet, something was off. "She's unpredictable," Julia noted one evening, but not in a bad way. "She's just human." Nathan didn't respond. He liked control, schedules, contracts, predictable outcomes. But Emily was a variable. 2 weeks in, Nathan came home early. It was raining again. Some investor dinner had been canceled, and he didn't feel like pretending tonight. He stepped into the building's private elevator, intending to stop by his penthouse upstairs, but then paused. Emily's unit was on the 19th floor. A part of him said, "Don't. Stay out of it." The other part, the one he hadn't listened to in years, pressed the button. The door was ajar. He didn't knock. He found her in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor, in front of an easel, charcoal-stained fingers moving quickly over canvas. She didn't notice him at first. He stepped closer and froze. It was a portrait of him, drawn entirely from memory. His face looked sharper, older somehow, but it wasn't the accuracy that stunned him. It was the truth in it. The eyes weren't cold. They were tired, haunted. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, without turning around. "You're drawing me," he replied, voice lower than usual. "Just from memory," Emily said, standing slowly. "Didn't think you'd actually show up." He looked at the picture again. "Why this?" she shrugged, wiping her hands on a towel. "You look like a man who's trying really hard to hide something broken." "That's interesting." The words landed harder than he expected. He opened his mouth to reply, but said nothing. After that night, Nathan avoided her again. But something had shifted. He read her updates more carefully. Not just the numbers. He looked at her handwriting. Noticed when it got shaky. Noticed when she started requesting strawberry smoothies every morning. Something about the acidity helped with nausea. He never said anything. But Julia started bringing fresh strawberries to the apartment, unasked. Emily noticed. She didn't ask questions. One evening, Emily sat on the balcony, sketchbook in hand, blanket around her shoulders. She wasn't waiting for anyone, but when she saw Nathan's silhouette appear by the glass door, she didn't move. He stepped out, silent. "You're not very good at small talk, are you?" she said without looking up. "No." They stood like that for a while, the city humming below them. Nathan finally spoke. "Are you okay with this?" Emily blinked. "Which part?" "Carrying a stranger's baby. Living in a place that smells like new money and cold air, being paid to disappear." Nathan didn't flinch, but he didn't reply either. Emily turned to him, her voice lower. "I'm not here because I don't feel things. I'm here because I do. I just don't have the luxury to act on them." Nathan stared at her. There it was again, truth, like a punch to the ribs. And for the first time, he wondered if he was the one who was losing control. Later that night, back in his penthouse, Nathan poured a glass of scotch, but didn't drink it. He stood in front of the window, city lights blurring in the rain. He thought about the drawing, her words, her eyes. And for the first time in years, he felt something. Not panic, not power, just a pulse, something human. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and cold floors. Emily sat on the exam table, fingers laced tightly over her belly, her nerves wound tighter than a violin string. Nathan sat in the corner, arms crossed, silent. He hadn't planned to come. In fact, he almost canceled the appointment twice that morning. But something pulled him there, something he still refused to name. The doctor came in cheerful and efficient and started the ultrasound. Emily tensed, then relaxed slightly as the gel spread across her skin. The machine crackled to life, and then ba-dump, ba-dump. A rhythmic thump filled the room. Then, a second one. The doctor smiled. "Well, there's our surprise." Nathan leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Twins," the doctor announced. "You're carrying two very strong heartbeats." Emily stared at the screen. Nathan didn't speak, not at first. Then came the sound of a breath, sharp and quiet, as if his chest had forgotten how to move for a second. His eyes locked on the screen. Two little flashes of life. Two. The car ride back was silent. Rain tapped the windshield softly. City lights blurred through the glass. But inside, the air was heavy. Emily kept her eyes straight ahead, hands resting protectively on her stomach. Nathan kept both hands on the wheel, jaw clenched, gaze fixed on the road. No one said a word, but the silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything neither of them knew how to say. At a red light, their eyes met in the mirror. Neither looked away. After that day, something changed. Nathan didn't announce his visits, but they became more frequent. He never stayed long, never crossed a line. But she'd find the evidence. A sketchbook on her desk, the exact kind she used before her old ones ran out. A bottle of stretch mark cream she'd never asked for, delivered quietly in a bag with no note. A body pillow, expensive, ergonomic, left on her bed after a long nap. He never said anything, but she knew it was him, and that terrified her. Emily had survived her whole life by keeping her walls up. Every time she'd trusted someone, they'd left. Or worse, used her. This was supposed to be simple, a transaction, a clean exit. But now there were two babies growing inside her, and a man who, against every rule they set, was slowly pulling at the stitches of her carefully held together heart. One night she stood in the kitchen, staring at the unopened bag with the sketchbook inside. Her fingers brushed over the seal. She didn't open it. She didn't throw it away either. Instead, she whispered to herself, "Don't fall," because she knew if she fell, she wouldn't survive losing him. Nathan, in his penthouse, stared at the same kind of silence he used to crave. But it didn't feel the same anymore. He couldn't focus, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about them. Not just the twins, her, the way she had looked at the ultrasound, like it wasn't just biology, like it was love. That scared him more than anything, because Nathan Carter didn't do love. Love was weakness. But somehow Emily made him wonder if maybe weakness wasn't such a bad thing. A few days later, he came to her apartment without warning. Emily opened the door slowly, surprised to see him holding a small box. He handed it to her. "It's just vitamins. Doctor recommended these." She took it carefully. "You didn't have to bring them yourself." "I wanted to," he said, then hesitated. "I wanted to see how you're doing." There was a pause that stretched just long enough for everything unspoken to hang between them. Emily stepped back, allowing him in. "I'm fine," she said. "The babies are healthy. I'm eating, resting, following the plan." Nathan looked around. Everything was clean, neat, controlled, too controlled. "You don't have to pretend this is just business anymore," he said suddenly. Emily blinked. "Isn't it?" Nathan didn't answer, because he didn't know anymore. That night, Emily sat by the window, hand resting on her growing belly. The city pulsed outside. The lights, the noise, the world she no longer belonged to. And yet, it wasn't the pregnancy that made her feel most vulnerable. It was the idea of hope, of maybe being loved, of maybe not walking away when this was over. She closed her eyes and whispered to the twins, "If he breaks me, please don't remember that part." In the dark, Nathan stood alone on his balcony, wind tugging at his shirt. His phone buzzed. An email reminder, legal review termination clause, surrogacy contract. He deleted it, because somehow the contract was no longer the point. The apartment door was unlocked. Nathan stepped inside, calling Emily's name once, but the silence that met him felt final. The lights were off. Her sketchbook was gone. So were her clothes, vitamins, and every trace of her daily presence. On the kitchen counter, under a glass of untouched water, was a folded note. Nathan opened it with steady hands, but the moment his eyes found the words, the world shifted. I kept my promise. I don't want anything. I wish your children the peace. Emily. That was it. No goodbye. No emotion. Just closure. Nathan read it again, then again, and still couldn't breathe. This wasn't part of the plan. She wasn't supposed to vanish. Not at 8 months. Not carrying his children. He dropped the note on the table like it burned. Seconds later, he was on the phone with Julia. She's gone, he said, voice dangerously calm. What do you mean gone? Julia asked. She left. Took everything. I need to find her now. Within an hour, the building's security pulled footage. There it was, Emily leaving at dawn. Hoodie pulled low. Small suitcase. No driver, no staff, no questions. She walked straight out of the building and into the street. No car, no trace. Gone. Nathan's composure unraveled fast. He called every private investigator in his network. Had airports flagged. Checked bus stations within a 200-mile radius. Nothing. She's smart, Julia muttered, reviewing the dead ends. She knew how to disappear. Nathan didn't respond. He stood by the window phone, pressed to his ear, calling hospitals, one by one, using aliases, descriptions, false names. Anything. Anywhere. He didn't care about the contract anymore. Didn't care about the money. He just needed to know she was safe. And for the first time in his life, he was terrified of being too late. That night, he sat alone in her empty apartment. He could still smell her perfume in the sheets. The kitchen still had her favorite mug on the drying rack. She left it all behind. Except herself. Nathan picked up the note again. I wish your children peace. His children. Their children. And somehow, none of this made sense without her. The storm hit fast. Wind howled through the streets of downtown as thunder cracked overhead like a warning shot. Nathan Carter gripped the steering wheel tighter, his vision blurred by sheets of rain hammering the windshield. He wasn't supposed to be out tonight, not with a meeting in the morning, not with visibility this bad. But after another day of silence, another day of no trace, he needed a distraction. He didn't expect a truck to cut him off. Didn't expect the sharp turn, the brakes screaming the impact. The emergency room was chaos, people drenched, coughing, shouting. Nathan's arm was scraped. His ribs ached, but none of it mattered. He sat on the edge of the hospital bed, phone buzzing in his jacket pocket, head spinning. Then he heard it. A nurse down the hall shouting, "She's in labor. No prenatal records on file." Another voice, name unconscious, no ID. Nathan didn't move until another word cut through the noise. Emily. His heart stopped. He was on his feet instantly, down the hallway, around the corner. And there she was, Emily, pale, soaked, breathing hard. Flat on the hospital bed, doctors rushing around her like she might shatter. Nathan pushed forward. A nurse tried to stop him. "Sir, you can't." He didn't care. He stepped into the room, like it was the only place in the world he belonged. Emily opened her eyes and saw him. She looked too weak to speak, but the pain in her eyes said everything. Shock, fear, relief. "Don't move," he whispered, breath-catching. "I'm here." She winced, grabbing the sides of the bed as another contraction hit. Nathan moved to her side, grabbed her hand. "You don't have to run anymore," he said, voice shaking. "You don't have to do this alone." Tears built in her eyes, but she didn't look away. Time disappeared. The storm outside raged, but inside it was just the sound of machines, quick footsteps, and one steady voice. "You've got this, Emily. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." For the first time in his life, Nathan Carter cried. Not because of fear, not because of pain, but because the moment he heard that first tiny cry, thin, sharp, real, it cracked something open in him. Then came the second cry. Twins. They were real, breathing, alive. And so was she. Nathan stood frozen as a nurse held out the first baby. He reached out, hands trembling, and pulled the child to his chest. A boy. He turned to Emily, who looked up at him through tears and exhaustion. She didn't speak, but the look in her eyes said it all. This wasn't part of the contract. This was life. He leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from her damp forehead. "Thank you," he whispered. Emily gave a weak laugh. "You're welcome, boss, see. Boss." Nathan smiled, holding back another wave of emotion. "I don't want to be your boss anymore." As the nurse brought the second baby over, a girl, Nathan helped Emily lift her arms. Together, they held the newborn close. The storm outside didn't matter. This was the eye of the storm. Still, quiet, sacred. Hours later, Nathan sat in a chair beside the hospital bed, both babies sleeping in the bassinets next to them. Emily had finally drifted off, exhausted but safe. Nathan couldn't stop looking at her. She had disappeared, yes. But now, here she was, and he was the one who almost lost her. The hospital lights were dim. Emily sat upright in bed, her arms wrapped gently around her newborn daughter, her son asleep in the bassinet nearby. The room was calm now. No doctors, no machines buzzing, no chaos. Just breath, just presence, just the quiet hum of reality finally catching up. Nathan stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the rain taper off. The storm had passed outside, but the one between them hadn't. Not yet. "I'm leaving tomorrow," Emily said softly, her eyes not meeting his. Nathan turned. "Would I've already asked the nurse to help arrange transport once they're cleared." The words landed like a punch. Direct, cold, final. He moved closer, but kept a careful distance. Why Emily looked down at the baby in her arms. Because this was always the deal. "I'd give you your children. You'd give me a way out. And now it's done." Nathan's voice was quiet, but heavy. "Is that what you think this still is, a deal?" She met his eyes, and that silence between them cracked wide open. "You don't need me, Nathan," she said. "You needed a child. You needed an heir. You needed control. But me, I was just a bridge, a solution." Nathan walked over and picked up the folder, resting on the side table the contract. The one they both signed months ago. The one that dictated every inch of their relationship. He opened it, read the first line. Then slowly, without a word, he tore it in half. Then again and again, until the paper was nothing but strips between his fingers. He dropped them to the floor. Emily stared. Nathan. "No more contracts," he interrupted. "No more conditions. No more pretending this wasn't real." He stepped closer, voice shaking not from fear, but from something deeper. "You changed me," he said. "You made me want to be someone better. Someone more." Emily didn't blink. Nathan took one more step. "I don't need you because you gave me children. I need you because you gave me something I didn't think I'd ever feel again, hope." Then, without warning, he dropped to one knee. No ring, no rehearsed speech, just a man letting go of everything he thought he was in front of the only person who ever saw through it. "I'm not asking you to marry me," he said, "not today, maybe not ever. I'm asking you to stay." He looked up at her eyes, glassy. "Not because of duty, not because of the babies, but because I can't imagine a life without you anymore." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, and for a second she didn't breathe. Because everything she feared, being used, being discarded, being temporary, wasn't what was happening. This was choice. This was real. She looked down at the tiny girl in her arms, then at the man kneeling before her. And she stood, still holding the baby. She stepped into his space. Nathan rose, slowly, unsure, until she leaned in, rested her forehead against his chest, and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere." He exhaled deep and shaky, and wrapped his arms around her, around both of them. The warmth wasn't grand. It was true. Days passed. The hospital discharged them quietly. No press, no announcement, just a black SUV pulling up to the back entrance while the city buzzed on, unaware that something extraordinary had just begun. In the back seat, Emily leaned against Nathan's shoulder. The baby slept beside them, bundled in soft blankets. No more fear, no more pretending. Just a family. There was no wedding, no headlines, no Instagram posts. Just the sound of lullabies in a home that had once been empty. Just a woman who had survived everything. Just a man who had finally learned how to feel. And two tiny heartbeats that had changed both of them forever. Sometimes, the people who enter our lives for the wrong reasons end up giving us exactly what we needed most. Nathan thought he was just signing a contract. Emily thought she was just doing her job, but neither expected the real cost of emotional distance or the power of unexpected love. This story reminds us that true connection doesn't come with terms and conditions. Love, trust, and healing can't be bought. They have to be chosen over and over again. In a world that tells us to stay guarded, this story asks, what if the bravest thing you can do is open your heart, even when it's risky? Whether you're building a relationship, healing from the past, or figuring out your next step, don't underestimate the impact of simply showing up. Fully, honestly, humanly. What did this story make you feel? Drop a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that hit where it hurts and heals.